Okay. I didn't want to stop the flow though.
Uh, Okay, so I got a question on the floor. When you hear the term anti-Semitic, what does that mean for you guys?
I mean, for me, it's basically saying like you're going against yourself. So, really, it just show that a person not aware of who they really are. You know what I'm saying? Us as, you know, uh, Asiatic, being.
So when y'all ever first heard that term, how was it? How did y'all perceive it? Like you look at ABC, Fox. Oh, somebody made an anti-Semitic statement.
Sound crazy to me.
It's
You got something
maybe confusion. Maybe
Sorry.
it's
like confusing?
yeah, like mixed thoughts about it.
What does anti-Semitic mean? Like when you heard that, like if somebody said, "Oh, Ramik Bey made an anti-Semitic statement," what are they implying?
I would think that it means it's not an equal statement. Like maybe separate.
Hmm.
Does it mean separate? Or that not completely together? Maybe.
Cosmetic statement.
I'm not sure what it means,
I
so
feel like
I'm
you
trying to just guess.
Anybody else? Have ever heard of this term?
can you use it in a different sentence?
Oh,
I heard it before.
I, okay, yeah, I'm trying to get a sense of the general what people feel about that. Like, what does that mean? Like, oh, he made an anti-Semitic statement. I guess I'm trying to get somebody to explain in 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 different words, like what is anti-Semitic? What is that? Oh, so for example, Mel Gibson made an anti-Semitic statement. That's an example. He said, put it in a sentence, right? This actually happened, and he was
Okay.
he was considered like bashing the Jews,
Well,
basically. He was like,
Okay, it's a little bit more
so it's a
context.
religious statement, pretty much. Or
so when you're
Is it
bashing
like against the culture?
the Jews, so anytime that you're displaying like, all these damn Jews, or you make a statement like,
Mm.
small hat wearing
Yeah, but
people.
see, we
No,
ain't
we
actually Jews by religion, or Hebrew by religion. It's more bloodline for us.
oh yeah, yeah. That's what I was trying to gauge. So y'all already comprehend that. So
Right.
I guess okay. So cool. We're ahead of the game, and sending other people. I'm not going to assume. Benjamin Bay, what was your thoughts? I don't want to assume everybody in the chat just didn't know. I'm just curious. I guess let me rephrase that. I'm curious to hear everybody's thoughts in the chat on the term anti-Semitic. What was your thoughts on Benjamin Bay, when you first heard the term anti-Semitic? Raphael made an anti-Semitic statement, or just when you first heard it, before the more science. You're looking at TMZ, actor is being persecuted because he made an anti-Semitic statement. Why is he getting persecuted so hard? What is the media implying? It's a new space for everybody, for the most part, outside of a
Mm-hmm.
couple people.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
It's new for me too.
Okay.
It's okay.
I was just hoping somebody would have said, "Oh, that means somebody bashing Jews."
That's what you're trying to fish
Yeah,
out. You
yeah,
put up the ring for that and
yeah,
you didn't catch
yeah,
anything.
yeah, yeah. No, no, but it's
uh,
not fair to just do that because people might not even heard of the word in
You
its
didn't know it
context.
was the bait.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So
so
that's
is
why
that what you?
I presented it like that. But yeah, so when people say anti-Semitic or somebody made an anti-Semitic statement, what they're implying in the general populace is that somebody made a derogatory statement against Jewish people. That's how it's passed
Oh,
off.
a
All right.
direct statement.
Yeah, it's like derogatory to the Jews. Of course, we know the background, but let's say we didn't know nothing about the history of how we the original Jews and all that. It comes across like we're talking bad about the Ashkenazi Jews, the one that were the yarmulkes, you know, those type of people that are considered Jews today. The people that control the industry, people that control a lot of the corporate institutions, um, is looked at as talking bad about them. He's anti-Semitic. Nick Cannon, for example, he came on, spoke out. He was considered anti-Semitic for statements he made, and then he came back and corrected his ways because he got threatened by the Ashkenazi Jews, right? So that's an example. Oh, you muted too. I don't know. I don't know if you know you muted Benjamin Bay. Um, uh,
Yeah, he's
Shalom
been
Bay.
muted for a while.
I was making sure you weren't talking to us. He might be talking to somebody else, but he definitely muted. Just FYI.
I was just making comments for myself, but preach about
Oh,
that.
okay, okay. Okay, I was making
Yeah.
Stanley and Bay, peace of love, man.
Peace and love, Morris.
Oh, you came in on the right time, man. We got a question on the
Love,
table.
man. Like,
We got a question. We kind of discussed it. When you heard anti-Semitic, like if somebody was you go on ABC tonight, look at the evening news, breaking news, a famous person was caught making an anti-Semitic statement in his house. What would you think they're trying to say about that person?
Mm. Uh, Probably, I would say probably that they're probably going against the agenda that they're pushing. That they're not like obedient to that. I'd probably say.
Interesting. So what? So if somebody makes an anti-Semitic statement, is basically going against. You said it's going against somebody.
I would say like going against like the agenda that they're like pushing. I would say
Who's they? Who has the agenda?
like uh
Jews.
like the government. Uh, you know.
Oh, okay, okay. So I like how you said that. So basically, we're saying the Jews and the government. 'Cause you just came on. Some
Yeah.
people, I said anti-Semitic is an anti-Jews thing. I try to get a sense of everybody in the chat. Have they heard of that
Oh yeah.
Semitic,
Absolutely.
anti-Semitic, anti-Semitic slur? And I brought up Nick Cannon, how he made an anti-Semitic slur, quote unquote, and then he was crucified in the media. He
Hmm.
dropped his stance and act right, right? He's now he's starting to act right. So who? So the Jews, people that are classified as Jews today,
Yeah.
said he made an anti-Semitic statement because he's talking bad about the Jewish people. We were offended about what Nick Cannon said. The Jewish community is offended because he made a statement saying that, oh, those are not the real Jews. In fact, dark skinned people are the real Jews. So the Ashkenazi Jews came out and was offended by that. Like, and we put you in position. We control all this, so you're gonna have to change your stance. Or
Right.
it's no more Wilding Out, no more Nick Cannon, no more. We're gonna blackball you. And we know we got stuff on you too, that you did some stuff that was kind of immoral about 5, 6 years ago. We would hate to have to put that out.
Absolutely.
You're gonna go ahead and act right. So when we saying anti-Semitic, we're saying people that are called Jews today. That's how I promote it. Is
Hmm.
that safe to say? Is that fair?
Absolutely.
Okay, so we on the same page with that. Okay. I had to
Absolutely.
set the I had to set the stage before I got into the lesson because I'm trying to lay a foundation. Like when you say Semitic, you're talking about us. You're talking about the Moors, right?
Of course.
So
Of
that's
course.
that's the foundation of today. But I had to make sure we're on the same page of how things are perceived today and what it
Nah,
really is. And once again, I'm just going through this for like I said, we're trying to just sharpen our tools. The whole point of coming together like this is to have real time lingo for the people who in our everyday life, Monday through Saturday. You wearing fez, turban, they see the flag, they see the insignia on you, they might have questions. You just want to have an arsenal of things to kind of, you just want to be knowledgeable, you know, helps to have fruitful conversations in the field, when you in your official capacity, so to say, as the Moor.
Yes,
Uh,
sir. I appreciate the question.
oh yeah, no, I appreciate the answer, man. All right, so now that I set the stage, let's continue where we left off in that African presence in early Asia. This specific chapter is dealing with ancient Palestine and Africa, or Africa and Palestine in antiquity. Essentially, we're talking about this area anciently, what was going on. That's the space that we're going to talk about. Um, so let's get straight to the stuff that I got queued up. There's a lot of stuff in here. So in Ethiopia, the adjacent southwestern corner of Arabia, the Black Sabians succeeded in creating a brilliant Cyclopean civilization and became renowned for their advanced astronomy and stellar mythology. So let's deal with Islam Indigo. Let's deal with Sabian.
You're reading the highlighted area, the second thing.
Yeah, I'm reading the highlighted area, by the way. Oh, and Yenis Bam will send you a copy too of this too, by the way.
I think that was earlier for the Ramon.
Oh, oh yeah, for the
Appreciate
divine one. Oh, yeah, for the divine one, I got you. Um, so let's get into Sabian culture. Saba. Sometimes it's codified. Let me see how I'm looking at this camera. I feel like oh, that's all. Sometimes it's codified as Queen Sheba. Like in the Bible, holy books, I would just say Sheba, interface with King Solomon. These are code words for shifts and paradigms, etc. Right. So let's get into Sab. Remember, we're coming from the Moor as a Moorish perspective, reading books like this. Ivan Van Sertima isn't necessarily prescribed. He's not coming from a Moorish lens. So what we're doing is making it black and white when we go through these books because we already know timelines. We already know about the Moorish Empire, but they may be called different things in certain books. All right. So now we're dealing with when they say Sabian culture, or anytime you hear the ancient Saba, you're dealing with the ancient Semitic people, which we'll get into. All right, so the Saba betrays a Nile Valley connection since the Egyptian word Saba means star, a clear indication of the Sabian reputation as stargazers. Us in the Moorish science, we can use this as a springboard to reiterate the fact that we understand the heavens and the star, the heavens and the earth. Our flag is cosmological. You know, the mere fact that we get into Mother Zodiacus or the great wheel, the great 12 signs that give everybody their personality and how to interact and ebb and flow and harmony and peace. It's what to eat based on this connection to the stars in heaven. So
To add to your wisdom, bro, I have a
yeah,
book called Sabi and Symbols, and it's an astrological book that every day it tells you like a philosophy. Kind of like if you was get a Bible verse, read it, it tells you
Oh,
like
that's pretty cool.
subject and how it lines up with like what's kind of like happened today. And that reminded me, like, he was like, it's a star. And it's called like Sabi and Symbols. You should check it
mm,
out for sure. It's like really, really long book because it's like going through like the entire zodiac, from like Aries to Pisces. But just to
wow,
add, saying it's basically another like a astrological book to show Sabi and Symbols. But you should check it out. But I
yeah, yeah. Hey, drop it in the chat.
Yeah.
Drop it in the chat, man. Yeah, so this is our culture. That's what we're going over is our culture. And let's go into it just a little bit more. Let's just see, just so we can the common man and woman if they were to look up ancient Saba or something like that. Just um, let's look at some things that pop out. Okay, so Sabian culture is mentioned in Genesis and First Kings. Like I kind of just gave a little summary dealing with Queen Sheba. Now, you're gonna once you start diving into Sabian culture, you're gonna start seeing Sheba and Saba is used so interchangeably, and that's why I say with these code words. All right, let's see what other stuff stands out. Oh, look, who were the Sabians? A Semitic people. So that's why I kind of wanted to lay a foundation to kind of see where everybody was at. When we're saying Semitic, we're saying Jewish. All right, so our people, this is how I like to, like I say, I done went over about 7 different demonstrations on how we the original Jews. This is just another one, right? So we want to be able to package things in real time for people and draw correlations. So we can be like, oh, okay, right? And not just say, oh, we the original Jews and just leave it at that. Um, it was somewhere else. Okay, so now look, put in what is Semitic or what is Semitic. We're dealing with Aramaic, Arabic speaking people, Arcadian, etc. So all these, oh, here we go. This is what I'm looking for. So Semitic dealing with the Afro-Asiatic family. So we're dealing with Jewish, original Jewish people. We're dealing with the original, what they call, we know Afro is connotative, but they're implying melanated people as being Asiatics. We already know the Phoenicians. So when we look at these definitions, and that's why we always iterate, don't get rocked to sleep as far as Phoenicians, Sumerians, Mayans, Olmecs, as as if they're different people. We can't, we learn a lot of information and things get repetitive, but we have to realize that people aren't really scholarly on history. So certain things you have to highlight. People heard of the Phoenicians, people heard of the Carthaginians, people heard of the Turks. People heard of the Moros from if they grew up in the eastern part of the world. People know about the Taínos and the Arawaks. So you can appeal to people where they're at and let them know how to connect it to the Moorish paradigm. But first, you need to know the information. Um, where was I going with this? It was another one. It showed anti-Semitism. Actually, I wanted to show that. So super. I thought I had anti-Semitic queued up too. I guess I didn't. All right, so let's go back to the book. That's enough. Supplemental. All right, so we were the stargazers. Whenever one looks for Aboriginal people in Western Asia, one finds blacks, and it is a mulatto type that emerges as a Semite of history as a result of the fusion between autochthones and the in-migrating Indo-Europeans. Now Valley civilizations exercise a cultural hegemony over all Western Asia antiquity. Ancient Egypt, out of its Nubian antecedents at Ta Seti, began its dynastic history towards the end of the fifth millennium or 5 BC. It was a mature and flourishing civilization for about 4,000 continuous years. All of the civilized arts were brought to fruition there, and the total weight of its influence on the nations and peoples that surrounded it is beyond calculation. For many centuries, large parts of Western Asia were either under Egypt's direct political control or in a state of vassalage to her. You want to highlight this to people, whenever they say ancient Egypt, they're saying Moorish Empire. So, I mean, something I guess you do have to be repetitive. But once again, Egypt, as we talk about Middle East today, was established in 1950s. When we're referencing Egypt, anything previous to that, especially BC time, fifth century, we're talking about ancient Egypt, Nefertiti, all these ancient sultanas and caliphs. That's Moorish Empire. You have to make sure that's in the equation when you're talking in this space and clear it up. When we're saying ancient Egypt, we're talking about the Americas. And that'll help people not be so apprehensive on this information. And it shows that you studied yourself. The fact that you can go down these paths with people. Like, okay, I'm gonna know more about this. Where can I learn more? Um, so the ancient Egyptian language was also autochthonous or original African language, but one with affinities to Phoenician, Hebrew, and Canaanite or Kemetic. So you see how they keep bringing the usual suspects: Phoenician, Canaanite, all these is Boers, right? It belongs to the Northeast African language group, which is ancestral to Semitic languages, or to Jewish languages, or to ancient Moorish languages, or languages that Moors spoke, such as Latin, Sanskrit, etc., Hebrew, Aramaic, whatever the case may be. The Hebrew story begins around 1700 BC with the migration of the shepherd Abram, or later to be Abraham. Now, and I'm talking about I'm talking about Bible, our brothers in the Bible. Because remember, the title of this specific chapter is dealing with ancient Palestine and Africa. So sometimes we gotta look deeper. Like, okay, we're talking about the Americas right now, 1700 BC. What's the only civilization around during that time? The Olmecs and their subsidiary clans that they created after them. That might, like we talked about, migrated to Manchuria, set up disciplines over there. Some of them became later the Mayan. They created other clans called the Mayans, right? So when we talk about the Bible or Abraham and the tribes that are mingling, we're talking about in America, ancient Egypt. I keep these things in mind. But this is actually a pre-Hebrew stage of history. Because remember, they're saying Abraham was Hebrew, as if it's a nationality, but it's not a nationality. It's a language. Arabic is not being an Arab is not a nationality. We spoke Arabic. So look, what's so-called Hebrew, right, was like how most Christians know that story was introduced by Moses, which was 500 years after Abraham. So that's when the concept of how most people know being a Hebrew started. But in actuality, when Abraham was on the scene, it was before that type of concept. So we just need to know these things. Once again, this is an excellent book. If nobody hasn't got this book yet, please, please get this book. So the relationship in form, sound, and meaning between biblical names and corresponding Egyptian words is really quite astounding. Indeed, the Egyptian permits us to uncover meanings and connections heretofore completely hidden from us. This etymology, therefore, unlayers a whole hidden history that conventional philosophy and theology seems utterly oblivious of. The results are sure to surprise and encourage. Outrage. So before we read this next paragraph, what's going on? The Bible. It's clear that the Bible comes from somewhere. The stories in the Bible are not just um the Bible was like, oh, the Bible, how most people look at it, are stories that came from other books so that's more ancient than the Bible. What are some of those books? Egyptian Book of the Dead, the Kabbalah, a lot of the Hindustani books, ancient holy books, right? Dealing with Krishna and things of that nature. So why do I say that? Why is it important to know that? So you can explain to the people that are getting all starry-eyed and like, hold on. For one, religion comes from our culture. We had to establish religion for our people that fell astray and got so carnal. And there are bullet point messengers. There's really more than the most famous ones, but the most famous ones are Yahshua, Muhammad, Buddha, Confucius, Abraham. All these are people that came and showed a measuring stick on how we're supposed to conduct ourselves. So, is religion something that we're supposed to be arguing about, or are we supposed to be knowing that we're the ones that created religion? Because it comes from first, it was our culture. Our culture was packaged in symbolism to assist our people that fell astray, to help them rise back up from the dead mentally, organization, unity, right? So the faster we conceptualize that, the better we are to being an ambassador, explaining what this Moorish paradigm is all about. And we just doing the same work as Yahshua, letting people know our illustrious culture, why it's important to unify, just knowing the culture in itself. But once you understand, oh, my nationality and illustrious culture, now it's your duty to know, like the back of your hand, or the timeline from BC to right now, all our great emperors, sultans, what happened, the infighting, how things got to the condition it is today. It should be no gray areas because why? This is your culture. You should, if somebody, oh, I heard about the Moors. Oh, you got a Fez. Oh, I'm a Moor. You talking to one right now. Oh, I got questions. Da-da-da-da-da-da, the Moor Empire. Da-da-da. They hit you with something about your history. Like, oh man, I heard about that, but I'm gonna get back to you, right? But you got the Fez and turban on. And this is not putting pressure. I'm being halfway funny here. It's not meant to put pressure on nobody because, like I say, as long as you're studying, you study whatever, but just be consistent with your studying, right? And of course, that's why it's platforms like this tap into, take notes, kind of know people got lives and stuff like that. But nonetheless, you're deemed to know about your culture, right? So at least trend that way, right? And I'm just purging right now. I'm just having a little fun with y'all, but halfway serious too, right? Um, so let's go into what Ivan Van Sertima, the correlations he's making with the original people in the Bible, or the Bible itself, and the origin of the Bible. And we also know about the Nicene Council, Constantine, 300 AD. They came and remixed the Bible to where it's at right now, right? Also, keep that in mind. So the Hebrew Adam is the first man in the image of God, the father of mankind, and the completion of creation. Now let's talk about the Egyptian Atem, right? And compare that to the Bible, right? The Egyptian Atem is the first God in the image of man and the father of mankind through a self-creative act. The root Tim in Atem means completion and mankind. The word At is an Egyptian name for father. Moreover, we know that Atem was first namer of created things. The Egyptian Dim means to name. So see how symbolic? He's symbolic to a Moorish deity that they gonna say Egyptian, the Book of the Dead. They're gonna call us Egyptian all that, but we know he's just Moors. And once we see it like that, now this becomes clear of how these stories in the Bible came from books that the Moors wrote. It's symbolic. So Adam's consort, or his wife, or Eve rather, is even whose Hebrew name is Hava, and who in the Genesis story is seduced by the serpent. The name Hava corresponds to the Egyptian Hefa, who was the great mother serpent of the world. There are several layers of meaning to be peeled back here. Eve, Hava, as Hefa, is the serpent of Genesis in its form as a great mother. But Adam, Atem, is also the serpent because one of the forms of Atem is the great serpent. And now you would definitely have to reference these ancient Book of the Dead. These are ancient Egyptian Book of the Dead references. You have to be knowledgeable of that book, and it'll make more sense of who Atem is, etc. But nonetheless, it's enough information in this book to let you know that it's an origin to the Bible, and the Bible is not the be all, etc. And if we are looking at the Bible, we need to know all this information so we can talk about the Bible in its proper context. Where I leave off at. Oh, great. Okay.
Several layers.
Several layers. All right. Yeah. So the Bible has several layers. All right. So Eve Hepha is the serpent of Genesis in its form as a great mother. But Atem, is also the serpent because one of the forms of Atem is as the great serpent. The serpent of Genesis then is indubitably Eve in one aspect, but also Adam in another. The great serpent, along with the tree, was originally a maternal symbol, which later took on a masculine aspect. Thus, Adam and Eve are both humanized forms of the great cosmic serpent of creation that is found in all the cosmological or cosmologies of the world, but which was elaborated first in the Kamite cosmology, perfected in ancient Egypt. So these are the cosmological stories and stories of ascension, or stories on how to raise your vibration that were first handed down by the Moors, connotatively referred to as ancient Egyptians, in this book by Adam Van Sertima. So Moors created religion. Moorish culture, some of our people lost their noble way, right? We fell into a state of servitude for losing our noble way, falling victim to doing low vibrational things. Oh, here comes these great messengers of our people to restore order. Like, man, y'all lost your way. Get it back. And it's on record who these people are that did this great work. One of the last noble people was Noble Jew Ali to come and restore order with instructions, etc. Right? So all these things are in play. How to talk about these holy books and from a proper perspective. So, matter of fact, let me greet the chat here. There's a couple people that slid in here.
Just do a little piece on this part, especially if it's
yeah.
coming from this book.
Oh, Brother Brian, peace and love. Brother Ross Sirius, peace and love. BL, peace and love. I think I greeted you already. Yep. Yeah, so um, let's continue here. Continuing in the Old Testament, Adam and Eve give birth to Cain. Cain in Hebrew, who struck down his brother Abel in the act of murder. In Egyptian, Quin means to beat, to strike down, to murder. So Cain's name derived from the silent deed of his life. In the Old Testament, the figure Noah is seen in many guises. He is the survivor of the flood. He is the first cultivator of the vine through which he succumbs to drunkenness. And he is also a gardener, a husbandman. And we know in the lessons in the Circle 7, husbandman, that means cultivator. Oh, look at, that's what it says, cultivator. Let me check the chat real quick. Oh, yeah, peace and love. So in Hebrew, Noah is Nuach, the CH being pronounced like a near silent K. In Egyptian, Nu is the personification of the waters, the embodiment of the great flood of both heaven and earth. The Nile flood, which so completely dominated and characterized Egyptian life, is the archetypical flood, and therefore a personification of Nu. The Egyptian word Ankh means fertile field, garden, irrigated lands. Thus, the Egyptian Nuach indicates the flood of the land and fields, the flood that provides the field with the waters of irrigation. Thus, Noah, or Noach, as Nuach, is in reality the flood waters that irrigated and fertilized the cultivated lands, which is in perfect keeping with Noah's double personification as the man of the flood and the gardener or husbandman. Huh?
Oh no, I said the cultivator. I was just adding to
Yeah,
my.
the husbandman, right, the cultivator.
Mhm.
So the personification of Noah, or how he comes across, is in the Bible is very vague. Oh, the Noah and the flood, right? Now we know the origin of where that story comes from. We're dealing with new. We're dealing with floods and all that type of stuff. Unless you cross-reference that with the Egyptian Book of the Dead, you're gonna say, "Oh, we dealing with new. We dealing with the waters, the primordial waters. Oh, we dealing with manifestation coming out the waters. Oh, we dealing with Ptah. Oh, we dealing with ancient principles. Oh, the Bible's symbolic, right?" So, um, where I leave off here. So the Egyptians did all that. The Ark of Noah is a replica of the boats the Egyptians used to move about during flood season, as well as of the ark of the sun that floats across the heavenly rivers of Nu or Nun. Additionally, Noah or Nuach is identical to the Egyptian Nunk, which means drunkenness, a clear reference to the drunken episode of Noah, the winemaker, which led to the curse of Canaan. Since the intoxicated state was once likened to the spiritual state, the drinking of spirituous beverages like wine was reserved for the religious ceremonials of the priest. And this is just I liked this part because it gave a little insight onto Noble Joy Ali is saying stay away from fiery drinks and don't be all intoxicated out here. I thought about that when it's about moderation. So at this time, alcohol was just reserved for the high priest during ceremonies. It wasn't meant for the common man because, as we'll see, as we know, once it got to the hands of the common man, now we have alcoholism, people getting drunk because they don't know how to use moderation. Um, okay, so it was reserved for religious ceremonials of the priest. It is only when the drinking of alcohol beverages came into common use that drunkenness became a vice. See, right? We have dominion over the earth, over the plants, over everything. But once we start using it and abusing it, I mean, we lost some type of discipline. That's the bottom line. Um,
You're right here. See, yeah, it's pointer.
so CADF has pointed out that the curse of Canaan, clearly a later interpolation into the myth, represents an anachronistic justification of later Hebrew writers for the conquest of Canaan by the Hebrews. Canaan, Canaan, in fact, is identified in Genesis to belong to a quote unquote black race, since, like the other innocuous ancestors of black people, Cush, Mizraim, and Put, he is the son of Noah, son of Ham. The name Ham is derived from the Egyptian Cam, which is the strongest word in the language for quote unquote black or blackness. And of course, is Ivan Van Sertima speaking. Um, I think that's enough foundation. I think that's enough foundation for remember how we opened up. What is anti-Semitic? We looked it up. It's commercially used to talk about you pretty much bashing the Jews, the people that are perceived to be Jews today. We just ran through some information to show one, when we're saying Saba or Sabian culture, that's just another way of saying ancient Moorish culture. When we looked up the Sabian culture, it took us to, oh, Semitic people. All right, so this is a demonstration, another demonstration on how we're the original Jews. It's another demonstration on how the Bible, how it has an origin, right? How we need to connect it to ancient books, read ancient books, read all the holy books in the world, and you're going to draw a correlation. All right. Um, Matter of fact, let's keep dealing with Abraham for a little bit longer. There's something I had queued up dealing with Abraham. So after making the covenant with God through circumcision, Abraham becomes Abram. Abram becomes Abraham. And the latter name can be broken down in Egyptian as follows. Ib is an Egyptian word for heart, desire, wisdom. Ra is the sun god Ra, which translates to fire or light, giving Abraham, remembering that Abraham is Ibrahima in Arabic, which means a desire for wisdom or the light, the desire for fire. Well, we know that, the desire for truth, right? So all ancient names mean something, by the way, too. Through this, we can connect Abraham to Ra. And it is Ra in Egyptian mythology who first institutes the rite of circumcision. This combination of correspondences cannot possibly be coincidental. And given the fact of Abraham's sojourn in Egypt, as described in Genesis, and the cultural hegemony of Egypt over Western Asia, there is nothing surprising in this connection between Abraham and Ra, which makes him a devotee, a priest, or perhaps even a personification of Ra himself. Because his name means, right? Um, so Abraham's second son, this connection continues in the figure of Abraham's second son, Isaac, which in Hebrew is Yasik. In Egyptian, Yas means place and Unk means offering by fire or burnt offering. Giving Yasak, or a place of the burnt offering. In the Old Testament story, the outstanding event of Isaac's life is when he is about to be sacrificed to God as a burnt offering by his father Abraham. But God prevents the sacrifice from being carried out and sends a lamb as a substitute. Yasik is thus connected to Ra by his relation to fire, and the lamb is his sacrificial alter ego. From Isaac comes Jacob, his second son, who after wrestling with God changes his name to Israel. In his first manifestation as Jacob, we get in Hebrew, Yakub, broken down in Egyptian to Yah, a name of the moon and moon god, and Kub, which means circuit, giving Yakub meaning the circuit of the moon. This refers to the nightly and monthly travels of the moon and reflects the fact that the earliest Semitic deities, the earliest Moorish deities, were identified with the moon. Back to astrological, back to showing how ancient culture had an intimate connection and understood the energies of the Elohim, seven ruling planets, how it relates to man, seven hermetic principles. But the change in the name from Jacob to Israel, or Yakub to Israel, reflects the new pattern of worship, the new dispensation, as it were, because Israel in Egyptian is broken down to Yas, meaning place, Ra, which is Ra, and Er, meaning creation, giving Yazrael, Yazrael. The I and R are linguistically interchangeable in the terminal EL and IR. Thus, we have the place of Ra's creation. So the place of Ra's creation. And we all know, I ain't gonna say we all know, but Jacob or Israel is where it was really Yakub because it was no J. So Jacob is really Yakub. And we know Yakub was responsible for doing genetic mixing to create mankind or create the Albion with the troglodyte monkey. So when we look at it from another lens, we're seeing symbolically what the genetic mixing is in the Bible, right? Because what's his name mean? That's his man. He was meant to do that. The genetic mixing, Yakub was meant to do that. I'll leave off.
Mm, on the basis of this etymology.
Uh,
So the place of God's creation.
all right, the place of Ra's creation. So, what was Jacob's creation? The Albion in Argentina, Central America. It was too hot for the Albion creation because lack of melanin. We had to ship the Albion to the colder part of the planet, which was under the jurisdiction of Queen Europa, Iberian Peninsula, Asia Minor. So the term Europeans for the Albion took place. Queen Europa, Slavs, Europa, European. So I'm just tying all these things together with cross references from a book from Ivan Van Sertima. Um, that's actually heavy. That just came to me right now. Ra's creation. All that clicked. On the basis of these etymologies, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, or Israel, must have been Ra, very likely in the form of Ayin, or Hu, the golden ass, or golden donkey, who was the supreme deity of Egyptian pantheon and whose visible emblem was the sun. Later, non-Jewish writers in classical times inferred that the Jews had been worshippers of an ass deity. Of course, they're making a mockery. Uh, a charge with the Jews, of course, vehemently denied. It is evident that these writers were familiar with the remnants of a Jewish tradition, which harkened back to their pre-Mosaic history when they were worshippers of Ra. So, what's the culture of the Jews, of the ancient Jews? Oh, it was cosmological. They dealt with Ra. They're loosely referred to as Egyptian, loosely referred to as Sumerian, loosely referred to as Carthaginian, loosely referred to as anything ancient, Phoenician, right? All these is the ancient Semitic people. Sometimes they're called so you got the Ashkenazi and then you got the Sephardic. They will call the original Jews the Sephardic, which takes you down to the ancient Berbers, back to the Phoenicians, back to the Canaanites. It's gonna take you down to that space. So we just need to have that comprehension. Because when we being ambassadors and talking to the people, and I'm of course I'm wearing a missionary hat right now, and I'm talking, of course, this is not quote unquote, it's not a hat, it's a fez. But my mind state when I'm doing pop ups, when I'm dealing with the people, and I'm talking about this more space, is actually missionary work. So back to the competency, back to know how to talk about this from many lenses. You're only gonna know how to talk about it from many lenses if you just study. The people are gonna have questions, especially if you're talking with some sense. They're gonna naturally be inspired to ask you questions. All right. We're the nobles of today, right? Whenever we're in Morris Guard walking in public, it's a star-studded event. They want to know. They want to take pictures. They got questions, especially if they're travel people. Hmm. Yahweh. Everybody knows about Yahweh, right? In the Bible. With the introduction of Yahweh and the promulgation of the laws and the Morpheus congeries of Egypto-Canaanite. Look at these words they make up. What's Egypto-Canaanite? Of course we know.
What the fuck?
Hey, of course we know, but we gotta look at this. And these little things are rocking people to sleep. That's a whole different people, right? So the Moors, outcasts, were converted into the Hebrews of history. In Egyptian, Yah is the moon god, and Wa means increasing or growing, giving Yahweh the growing moon. This admits of several interpretations. Yahweh or Yahweh could be a lunar form of the great mother goddess. So Yahweh, the great mother goddess. We're actually doing Bible study right now. Did y'all realize that we were doing Bible study the last 30 minutes?
Yep.
Did y'all realize that?
Yeah.
You go into the church talking like this, they gonna throw
You're
you
gonna
out.
get banished.
They gonna throw you out
Heretic.
Hey, the devil.
like Jazzy Jeff got thrown out the mansion on at the beginning of
Yeah.
Fresh Prince. He gonna get thrown out the church. Uh,
I have a question about the Yahweh. I know you're gonna go into it, but from
uh,
my research, they always represent him as a storm god, as a male storm god like Zeus or Jupiter. But then you're talking about the moon cults, which are very prevalent, especially after like Moses. So I don't know. Could you clarify that for me? That's
oh, they
all.
gonna make it. They gonna make it like it's a cult. Because even like the brother who was on here. Oh yeah, brother Abdullah. He was on here breaking down sin. How the word sin goes back to the word moon. So
Yeah,
Mount
moon.
Sin or Mount Sinai really
Sinai.
is saying,
Yeah.
yeah, the temple of the moon. So, and we've been talking about like moon gods and all this, the great mother goddess, which is Luna and all this stuff. So, the temple of the moon and sun, that's all American pyramids, right? These are right now Mexico, down to Belize to Peru. They're called the temple of the moon and sun, the biggest pyramids in the world. So these are the mounts that are talked about in the Bible, are these pyramid complexes. And so whenever you hearing them trying to make it spooky, like, oh, the cult sun worshippers or these pagan sun worshippers, moon worshippers, they're
It's
really
just
being,
priestcraft.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're trying to make it look like yeah, like how they make the culture like it was witchcraft and it's voodoo and it's a throw
Yeah.
off to keep you away from diving into the intricacies of what's being talked about here. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Anybody else got anything else? Well, I'm take any statements, comments on this space before I continue?
Another question too. I know this is I always say one question, but it's never one question. But a lot of them place a lot of emphasis on the moon cycle. I realize how important it is. Time is money, and money. Like that's how we operate, like the program or system of our moon cycle. But essentially, the moon cycle is programmable from what it seems like, and based on how you program it determines the fruits of your labor, based off the two principles, the principle of as above so below, and then the principle of correspondence.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, that's what you mean by programmable. You can be in harmony with the cycles of the moon or being aware of the cycles of the moon and doing things in your life accordingly, such as um, planting seeds or coming up with ideas during the waxing, right? You have the waxing and waning. So
Yeah.
you want to be in harmony with just nature when you're doing things, you know.
Right.
Um,
Want to make a
Good.
comment?
go ahead, got something?
Yeah, I do. Okay, so like when you're talking about moon cycle, for me that makes me think about women, right? Because we're so close with nature. Our our moon cycle, like we actually go along with the moon. So if you, as a woman, if you study your moon cycle, you know how to harness your energy. When should you be peeling back, and when should you be putting your energy out there? So I kind of get what you're saying because from a woman's perspective, you do have to link up your cycle with the moon in order to see
Right.
like where you're at energetically. Because there are
And that's
times where you will have a lot of energy, and that's when you could be most abundant. And you, yeah, like you're kind of tying it back to like money and energy. You can go out there and start doing stuff. And then there's
right.
times when you need to kind of peel back a little bit and like be reserved and take care of yourself. That's just a woman's perspective on the moon cycle and energy and following the moon in that way.
No, that was literally perfect because that's the correspondence. That's like one of the Hermetic principles, like as above, so below. It uses if the moon is a feminine principle, and then that's in the sky. below is going to be the fundamental principle that rules, the cycles of Earth, especially if it pulls the tides. And then woman is associated with the primordial waters of birth. So then it just makes sense.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm good. I'm good. I yield.
Oh, no, that's good stuff, man. We need that.
Can I elaborate a little bit on what the brother was saying about correspondence?
Oh yeah, your brother was serious. Peace and love, man. Yeah, you got it.
So most of us, if you've got into history on a level of the ancient religions or what they call the ancient cultures, as the brother said, it did tie into astronomy and astrology a lot. If you look into most of the ancient religions, even Islam, all of them started off as a uh, moon culture. Islam, the Quran is called the al-Kitab. Al-Kitab is the mother book. That's what the Quran is called. Now, when you look through certain aspects of the Quran, they talk about paganism. And when they talk about paganism, it's parts where they say, don't do as the pagans do, they worship women. Now, Islam at that time, the pagan aspect of it, they worship three deities, three goddesses, Al-Uzza, Al-Manat, and Alat. Those were the three deities that were worshipped. What did they represent? The three phases of the moon: waxing, full, waning. All the ancient religions at the time that dealt with moon worship, they dealt with it on that aspect because they studied the woman. In studying the woman, they called that time period, that was the period of worshiping the moon. That's also the period where later on they denoted it, as the brother said, sin. So none of us equate sin with the moon, but they're equating it as sin because it was a time during that moon worship or mother worship was in effect. You didn't start to see solar worship till later on. Solar worship is where you get into your Ra and all of that. That's when it was later taken from the creative aspect of studying a woman and following the moon cycles, and now coming into the solar aspect of a whole another solar creator. Now, they say in certain cultures, the moon reflects the light of the sun. It doesn't make it secondary. That makes it the closest thing to it in that aspect of reflection. When we get into like Ra and Abraham, when you're getting into Ra, now you're dealing with solar worship. You're talking about the movement of the sun, though. Even in that aspect, everything is dealing with still the movement of the sun or the movement of the moon. Those were the warships back then because we dealt with, in the ancient times, celestial bodies, and we calculated when they came back around the same way that they still do today. When you look in masonry and they talk about St. John the Baptist and St. John the Evangelist, when you really get into the astrological aspect of it, they're talking about what? The summer solstice and the winter solstice. So we encoded all of our astrology into the very things that we wrote down. As they said, they call them Phoenicians. Phoenician is a writing style. It's not a people. So even when we're looking at these labels, know that they are labeling us in these certain aspects. They say Yaqub or Jacob, he wrestled with God and then changed his name to Israel. They say Israel in certain places stands for Isis, Ra, and El, three deities. Can't be so if they're Greek words. Isis is Greek. That's not her original name. It was Auset, coming from the Egyptian or Kemetic perspective. What did Auset represent? The throne. Everything was based on that throne. So everyone running around saying Isis, but Isis was really Auset, and that was a representation of the throne. Everything that we deal with started from a moon religion, became solar religion, and then became misrepresented religion, which is what most of the things that we got running around right now. But how they had moon religions was they studied their women because women was the closest thing to God because it was a time it wasn't understood that we had a connection with the birthing process. So until we were taught by her that we were part of the birthing process, we really didn't know. So who will be God? The one that can bring forth life from herself without the sound of any tools. So when we studied her, moon worship. As we grew more, it got into solar worship, depending on where you were on the planet. Jacob became Israel in a place called what? Peniel. What's pineal? The pineal gland. So that means he manifested itself going from Jacob to Israel or Yakub to Israel in that place called pineal, which is the pineal gland. Look at how the ancients talk to us. Look at how they talk to us. On that I rest, brother.
Islam. Not beautiful,
That was
beautiful,
beautiful. Yes, thank you.
beautiful demonstration, man.
Yeah.
And keep in mind, on another level, Jew, we know it was no J, Yehudi, which goes back to deities we call Thoth or Tahuti. So when we look at it like that, we're looking at Jew differently, right? We're looking at one that knows knowledge, one that knows all the aspects of life, all the sciences, all the ologies. You're a Gnostic. Now you're a Jew. The Jew is not a nationality, right? So, you know, you gotta think about it like that as well. And I like the fact that Ivan Van Sertima, it's in this book because these are Morris lessons, and we can use this as cross reference just to talk to the people when we're trying to, do our missionary work and stuff like that. We got reference points and things like that. They don't feel we're biased or we're just coming up with all this stuff out of our, just making up stuff. Any thoughts before we transition? I feel like that's a good place to stop with this aspect of the demonstration. Um, I was going to transition to where we left off in the 12 powers of man. Okay. No thoughts. All right. So we transition. We're now dealing with chapter 5 of the 12 powers of man by the same author of the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary, Brother Fillmore. Regenerating love. And I want to iterate, this is interesting because Venus, green star, and our Moorish flag symbolizes love. So keep that in mind as we're reading through this. We cannot get a right understanding of the relation that the manifests bears the unmanifest until we set clear before ourselves the character of original being. So long as we think of God in terms of personality, just so long shall we fail to understand the relation between man and God. Then let us dismiss the thought that God is a man, or even a man exalted far above human characteristics. So long as the concept of man God exists in consciousness, there will be a lack of room for the true concept, which is that God is first cause, the principle from which flow all manifestations. To understand the complex conditions under which the human family exists, we must analyze being and its creative processes. So we must understand or comprehend the being and the creative processes. Inherent in the mind of being are 12 fundamental ideas, which in action appear as primal creative forces. It is possible for man to ally himself with and to use these original forces and thereby cooperate with the creative law. But in order to do this, he must detach himself from the forces and enter into the consciousness of the idea lying back of them In scripture, the primal idea and the mind of being are called the sons of God. So our ideas are not manifestations yet, right? Once we manifest them, here comes the patah situation, right? But when they're just a vision, or the sons of God, right? Divine ideas. The masculine son is intended to include both masculine and feminine, is born out of the context and, in fact, the whole history of the race. The being itself must be masculine and feminine in order to make man in its image and likeness, male and female. Analyzing these divine ideas or sons of God, we find that they manifest characteristics that we readily identify as masculine or feminine. For example, life is a son of God, while love is a daughter of God. Intelligence is a son of God, and imagination is a daughter of God. Right? And everybody comprehend that, right? It's characteristics of masculine energy and feminine energy, right? So being logical would be a characteristic of a masculine energy. More intuition would be a characteristic of feminine energy, right? So this is what is being implied here, just in case that's a new space for people. Um, the evidence that sex exists in the vegetable and animal world is so clear that it is never questioned, but we have not so clearly discerned that ideas are also male and female. The union of the masculine and feminine forces in man is most potent in the affectional nature, and that these forces should endure and never be separated by external cause was laid down by the law by Jesus, laid down as law by Jesus. He said, recorded in Mark 10:6-9, from the beginning of the creation, male and female made he them. So it took two. It took two to tango, right? For this cause shall a man leave his father and mother and shall cleave to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh, so that they are no more two, but one, right? It's a union in matrimony, right? What therefore God have joined together, let no man put asunder. We should clearly understand that each of the various ideas or sons and daughters of God has identity in creation, is striving with divine might to bring forth its inherent attributes. It is to these ideas or sons and daughters that being or Elohim says, quote, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, right? Famous Genesis verse. Spiritual man is the sum total of the attributes or perfect ideas of being, identified and individualized. This man is the only begotten of Elohim. Jehovah, or I am that I am, is the name of this divine man. He was manifest as the higher self of Jesus or Yeshua, and in the scriptures called the Christ. Jesus named him the Father in me, the Father in me, right? The micro macro concept. In the book of Matthew, he called him Father more than 40 times. Christ is our Father. Through him, Elohim, our original being, brings forth all human beings. It was Jehovah, or I am, that formed Adam out of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. Breathing is the symbol of inspiration. Jesus breathed upon his disciples and said to them, receive ye the Holy Spirit, or receive the breath, or receive the truth. Right? In our Morris lessons, we know what is breath. That just means the truth. Or spirit. Spirit. Spirit means breath. And the truth. Three primal forces of being are manifest in the simplest protoplastic cell. Science says that every atom has substance, life, and intelligence. This corresponds to the symbolical creative process of Jehovah, as
Yeah.
described in Genesis 2:7. The dust of the ground is substance. Breathe refers to the impartation of intelligence, and the living soul is the quickening life. These three constitute the trinity of the natural world, in which the body of man is cast. When one understands the creative processes to be the working of the various principles of being and the development of man, many inexplicable situations are cleared up. God cannot bring forth without law and order. God cannot bring forth without law and order. So we can look at that micro or macro, and a micro is back to us having ideas, making it happen, to execute a plan, to draw up something that, takes order. It takes a willpower, it takes a discipline, right? So if you're in chaos, you're not manifesting. People that's in chaos, they're not doing too much manifesting. But you know what? I guess another way to look at that, I guess you're always manifesting positively or negatively. I say that. I take that back. We're always manifesting, but we want to control what we manifest. We want to have intention.
We want to be conscious.
We want to be conscious of what we want to manifest.
It
All right.
reminds me of the Book of John when it said, I don't say like Sophia created something without knowledge. Then what she created ended up ruining the world. I'm saying ruining the world, but it created something within itself that it thought it wanted to be the ruler. So, out of Sophia's ignorance, she manifested something. So just to said, like, always being good thoughts so you manifest good things. But that's what it made me think about the Book of John. Just her manifesting something out of ignorance, and then that something ended up causing turmoil in society. It ended up injuring her as well. But,
Islam.
Can I add something?
Oh, yeah, you got something?
Yeah. So that's why, like, Noble Drew talks about setting yourself, because when you understand yourself, you understand the subconscious and unconscious programmings that we've been through, right? We have certain limitations of things in our head, and that causes these certain manifestations that might not be good. And that's why it's important to study yourself so that way you can understand, okay, I want to intentionally and consciously manifest this, right? Instead of getting knocked into the subconscious and, getting to something that might be a little bit more negative.
Yeah, that's a good correlation.
Mm-hmm.
Ramik Bey, did you have something? Were you about to say something?
Yeah, I was gonna say, Islam. I've been just getting knowledge throughout the history of the years of my life, So I feel like at this point, this is where the real deal knowledge comes in. Like throughout my life, I've been getting signs of, Yakub and people letting me know, where it's gonna end up and where I'm gonna end up, and I feel like this is, where I'm supposed to be at right now. Throughout the years of learning it. Still learning more, but just throughout the years, I know I've been learning to get to this point.
That's beautiful, man.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, man. I'm glad you're in the right place, man. You're definitely in the right place. Uh, all right, so you gotta have right balance, order, peace, Islam, I, self, law, and master, peace, law, order to manifest. To produce a man, there must be a combination of forces that at some stages of soul evolution may seem to work against one another. But when one understands that the great creative mind brings forth under law, reconciliation and consistency are found where inharmony and contradiction seem dominant. So, what is in the family? When you say law and order, we got consistency is a subcategory within that sphere. right? Diligence. So in order to make a manifestation, and it's no longer just a thought, is diligence, consistency, because you're not going to stop doing what you have to do to make your thoughts come to something that's a reality that the world can see, that's documented, whether it be a business, whether it be whatever the case may be. That's what we're in the business of doing. And back to the etymology of human. I love giving this example. Etymology of human, compound word. When you look up God, that's Middle English. When you take God or the word God, take it back to Sanskrit, who, H-U, you're dealing with to invoke, to make happen, to manifest. Man, the etymology of man is to think. The compound word hue plus man together, what does human mean? To invoke thought. If you're not invoking thought, you're not human. You're considered dead. Politically, as well. Civil mortals as well. Because that means you're not with your people. Y'all as a whole, as a people ain't thinking. Y'all as a whole, as a people ain't invoking together. Now you're considered dead in international law. See the ramifications? It's all connected. All this is connected to political status.
I have a
All right.
question.
Oh, you got it.
I know.
You got it.
Oh, I'm sorry to. Just I think this is. So, because you said invoke, and I did some research on invoking too, and understanding like basically what the root of that really mean is really to speak, and then and at the end of that is like what is it? God's word when He makes the whole universe, it's like a word, like it's like a speech. So when you're saying like invoke, you could like call down that force or that energy. So I was thinking like if we in a state of harmony, justice, peace, love, choose to like I know this sounds kind of crazy to be in this like kind of in a group and invoke together, um, what would happen?
Greatness. For example, let me give an example why I say, let me give an example of what that looks like. Let's say if 11 of us on this call, we say, you know what? This business would be great. We should start this.
It's land.
Let's all, yeah, let's get some land, whatever. Let's all piece up X amount of dollars because we know it's an auction that's coming up in a couple months. And, at these auctions, the city and the county is taking people property because they're not paying their property taxes or whatever, or it's abandoned or whatever. So
Whatever it is.
we can get some land or property very cheap. Now we do that. So we manifest that. That'd be an example.
Mhm.
That'd be an example.
That too, but I mean like on a like a higher plane, like so you know how the 5 star represents Venus. If we were to summon like not like Ishtar, but like a form of her that is benevolent, would that be possible?
Vogue Venus.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
because
So
one
here's the
person
example.
alone, that's a lot. But if you have a group, then it probably won't be that much.
Well, how I look at invoking Venus is how you're showing compassion to your brother and sister,
Mhm.
being loving, being caring. Even in this Moorish paradigm, Venus is in action because how I'm looking at it, I'm trying to unite the people. That's my sole
Yeah,
motivation when I walk out the house every day is like, how can I get creative in uniting our people so we can do great work and
yes.
being consistent with that. That's Venus.
That's the
Because
energy.
Oh, so
yeah, I love the
so
people.
just the act of morally loving the people is a invoking it evokes it has the same status of like invocation.
Well, the invoking cause you to be inspired to act,
Oh,
right?
okay. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. First you gotta be inspired. You really gotta have love. Your heart chakra gotta be on fire with
Yeah,
the
it gotta
Holy
be
Spirit.
open.
Yeah. And now your works are gonna show. Now people can measure your actions.
Right. Okay.
People can't feel your emotion or how inspired you are, but they can see the actions of your inspiration because now everything's documented, right? And so back to us as a group of people, communities are established, organizations, temples, body politics, however you want to call it, clans, tribes, whatever you want to call it, but the people are inspired to unite. And since we're inspired to unite, we should be inspired to set up businesses together. We should be inspired to get competent to spread the information so our clan, our body politic can grow. We should be inspired to wear our national headdresses in public. All this, as the months and years go on, things start to grow, right? Reputation, people knowing we exist. You just waking people up in general. Some people never even heard about what Amore is. So seeing us unify will do a great thing. Like, oh man, it's this group that came out at an event. They broke down some things. It's like, oh wow, I didn't even know.
Yeah.
Right. So we're here to inspire, demonstrate, and learn, man. It's all a lot of stuff happening at one time, man. But hopefully I answered your question, man, because I just be tying dots as I go.
No, no, you're good. I just wanted to know like what status that is, but you basically answer it. Just having the moral responsibility to act out of love, do what's best for our people is enough.
Yeah, man. You're your brother's keeper, man. Once you get this divine information, responsibility, man.
Please want to, okay, I'm gonna move.
Oh yeah.
So you were saying that you looked into the word invoke and you were talking about like expression, right? So the way I see it is as humans, like that's what we're here. We're here to express ourselves fully, but from pretty much from the heart space, right? And when you're in alignment, right, you could ascend up into that heart space, right? That's why we have a problem nowadays because everyone's down in the space of like fear and not trusting each other and stuff like that. But when we learn to unite based on the information, on the history and the culture and where we really come from, then when we work together and unite, we can get to that trust and that loving space versus the division with the fear and the mistrust. But it all starts with the self first. You have to get like that's working on the self first. But this like having the class in the temple like helps with that because these principles and the things that we learn, now we can actually unite in like in real time, like you say.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's repetition because let's face it, once we go back Monday, Tuesday through Saturday, it's a bunch of chaos, there's a bunch of stuff that don't matter, a bunch of distractions, it's a bunch of low vibrational activity. So we need these refreshers, man. Just being around the nobles, is a great thing. We wanna get it to the point where it's a community 5 days out the week where we see them, we moors, we got duplexes, we farming, industrious. We want it to actually be a community to that level. But this is how it all starts. It all starts. Um, and it's progress being made. We're a lot of things happening. Um, so yeah, like I say, as the months and years go on, that's the whole thing, progress. And yeah, that's what it's about, man. Uh, any other thoughts in this space where we transition to? It's a book we were on called Sex Magic, which is another ancient cultural book on how we use sex magic to contribute to our manifestation practices.
Islam, do you know the author of that?
Oh, before we move on to the next page, Yahweh is also referred to as the Tetramammon, which is this, I don't know, some of it refer to it as a mathematical object, which is a sacred geometry structure, which houses reality. And then other refer to it as just the unspeakable name of God. Um, why are there so many? I know there's levels to it. Why are there so many distinctions about this particular deity?
No,
Oh, it's
as
like that.
man, I say as man unfolds, God unfolds. So how you view the divine is different from how someone else views the divine. Not saying it's absolute, but that's what made me think of that. It's kind of like the Jesus story, how many Jesus it is, but it'd be like Krishna, Buddha, but they all got the same story. So I would say that's the reason why, because as these people were finding themselves various places on Earth, that's how they were seeing it. Kind of like basketball. Like maybe down here we don't play take backs, but up north you hit the ring, you gotta take it back. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Okay.
That type
Yeah.
of thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like they ain't saying game. Why there's so many rules? Like we was over here, but we were playing take backs and y'all could shoot at the three and out. It's like what's going on? That type of deal. But that's what I'm hearing. But hopefully that helps. But as man unfold, mine is God unfolds. But you.
No,
Wow.
I totally understand. I get it. It's like
So,
when you move to another place and they talk a little bit different and they accent change, but they had the same word. I hear.
Yeah,
so,
exactly. Some people be like for sure, or be like, oh, no doubt. But you're saying at the end of the day.
you said the same thing. We're always speaking the same language, you know. Uh, but yeah, okay, that's good. It's good stuff, man. Um, Somebody asked about the author for
Yeah.
so the book's called Perfect Matrimony, actually. It's talking about sex magic, but the book is called The Perfect Matrimony. It's only one book titled this. So if you find this book, this the right book. Um, so this is where we left off. And this is key too. I like where we left off too, because when we're reading this book, we need to approach it like what the author is about to say. It is not enough to race through reading this book. Those who think like that are mistaken. It is necessary to profoundly study this book and to totally comprehend it not only with the intellect, but in all levels of the mind. The intellect is only a small fraction of the mind. The intellect is not the whole mind. The one who only comprehends this book with the intellect has not comprehended it. Only with internal meditation is it possible to comprehend it in all levels of the mind. It is urgent to practice sexual magic in order to attain Christification. The reader will discover the supreme key of intimate self-realization within this book. We are not against any religion, school, sect, order, or lodge because we know that all religious forms are manifestations of the what? Great, cosmic, universal, infinite religion latent in every atom of the cosmos. So back to what the brother was saying, Osiris, and I mean Rosiris, and like we were talking about in the previous book, Ancient African Presence, Early Asia. All ancient religions, cosmological, dealing with understanding the relationship with the heavens and the stars, moon, sun, etc. Right? So here we are dealing with sex magic. This is ancient culture as well. These are ancient practices as well. All right. We teach the synthesis of all religions, schools, orders, lodges, and beliefs. Our doctrine is the doctrine of the synthesis. Sexual magic is practiced in esoteric Christianity. Sexual magic is practiced in Zen Buddhism. Sexual magic is practiced among initiated yogis. Sexual magic is practiced amongst the Mohammedan Sufis. Sexual magic was practiced by the initiated colleges of Troy, Egypt, Rome, Carthage, Eleusis. Sexual magic was practiced by the Mayan, Aztec, Inca, Druid, etc. mysteries. Sexual magic and the cosmic Christ are the synthesis of all religions, schools, and sects. We teach the doctrine of the synthesis. This doctrine could never be against diverse religious forms. Our teachings are contained with all religions, schools, and beliefs. If the reader does a serious study of all the religions of the world, he will discover that what? The phallus and the womb as the synthesis of all the mysteries. So that's the creation story, right? That's like okay, that makes sense. Man and woman in harmony. How can man and woman be in harmony? It's a science to that. Because that's how communities are created, right? That's how kingdoms and empires are established. It has to be man and woman on the same page, having children. Basic, right? That makes sense. So there has never been any primary religion or school of mysteries where the cosmic Christ and the mysteries of sex were absent. The doctrine of the synthesis cannot harm anyone because it is the synthesis of all. We invite devotees of all cults, schools, and beliefs to make a comparative study of religions. So I'm saying this too for everybody that hasn't studied every religion. Study every religion. Because once you do that, you're able to be a better ambassador because you're going to have a hold on what you're saying because you've actually studied every religion and you did the comparatives yourself. So now you can talk to the people, it's going to flow, right? And the people can sense if you're studied or not. That's another thing. You don't literally just gotta. I mean, you can go to your phone and reference something to, you know, um, cross reference what you're talking about, but people can sense if you know what you're talking about. It's intuitive, you know what I mean? So just know the information so we can be polished ambassadors for our nation state. We're representative. It might be a person that just ran across a moor for the first time. You want to be a good impression for the nation, man. Um, we invite students from all diverse systems of intimate self-education to study sexual esotericism from all the secret schools of mystery. We invite all yogis to study sexual yoga and white tantra from India, without which no yogi is able to attain total liberation. Whatever the name may be, sexual magic and the Christ are the synthesis of all esoteric studies, religious forms, or educational systems. The attacks of which we have been victims, the persecutions, the anathemas, and excommunications, etc., are because of ignorance, of lack of study. Any religious form of esoteric system enriches itself with the synthesis. The synthesis cannot harm anyone. This is the doctrine of the synthesis. We deeply love all religious forms. We know that all religious forms are the loving manifestation of the great cosmic universal religion. Supreme religious synthesis is found within perfect matrimony. God is love and wisdom. The ultimate synthesis of all lodges, orders, schools, sects, systems, and methods of intimate self-realization from the East, as well as the West, North, and South, is found within the Christ and within sex. I think I'll stop right there. So let's analyze what was being said here. And it's a lot of different lenses and aspects. For one, this is another cross-referencing tool that we can use when we're speaking of, because our brothers and sisters like to talk about, okay, I get the Moors, I get the religion, I get the nationality. What's the Moors religion? I like to use stuff like this to show, like I say, it was culture before religion. I always like to put that out there. Our people created religion to get our people back up to speed that fell to a carnal and lost their noble nature. But Moors created religion in that type of context. So that needs to be explained to the people. And then once that's explained, we need to know, okay, what was the culture then? Because now that's what we get into. Okay, since culture was before religion, what's Moorish culture? Oh, okay. So now we can talk to them on a level playing field. And that's what we've been talking about today, aspects of the culture. Why are we're talking about manifestation, we're talking about Ptah. What is sick magic? How is that related to Ptah? How is that related to manifesting? Like we talked about last week, you can use that act to charge you up to get inspiration, to get clairvoyance, to get wisdom, genius thoughts by not secreting. You can have the act, but just don't secrete. Allow that, allow the milk and honey, allow the land of milk and honey, right? Allow it to travel up. and activate your, the Christ. Rosarius, you got something, or are you saying Islam? You want to chime in?
Yes, definitely, brother, definitely. The true science of that, or one of the true sciences of that, like the brother just said, you don't, for lack of vulgarity, you don't expel your fluids. The reason that you don't, now, I'm not saying that the study is not to sit there and just hold back and don't release it. No, you have to be able to draw it up because that same fluid that you ejaculate, you can draw that up your spine, up into your brain, up into opening your pineal gland. That's what the Christ-like consciousness is. When you're rising it up, Christ rising from the dead is coming down there from that part of your lower chakras, which is where your sex organs or your sex magic begins. And as you start to bring that up, and it goes up your spine and goes into, your medulla oblongata, all of that. Once it hits your pituitary gland, your pineal gland, it has certain effects that bring about change. Like we said in the last demonstration we were talking on earlier, Yakub wrestled with God at Peniel, and then he became awakened, and his name became Israel. So that whole aspect of sex magic, as it says, it's a synthesis of all religions because we always have it. What's the one thing that's in all religions? Man and woman. There's a male and female in every religion. There is no just, it's all males in this religion. No, it's all females in this religion. No, if you have that, then that religion is going to die out very quickly. It takes the power in both. The sex act or the sex magic in itself, the refusing to ejaculate and use that to go up your spine and everything. And the same thing works for the woman. It works the same way. The body is now feeding on that energy, that life force. Your semen or your ejaculation, every time you ejaculate, you're ejaculating part of your life force. But when you learn to retain that and keep it in, and I'm not talking about holding back, this is where the meditation come in. Because the meditation come in the fact that you have to literally meditate on what your body is doing with that substance and that energy because it rejuvenates you. Now, it's a selection of books out by a brother named Montauk Chia, been around since the 80s. All right. And he got a book called Cultivation of the Male Sexual Energy. Him and his wife put the books out. His wife has a book out called Cultivation of the Female Sexual Energy, and they call it Ovarian Kung Fu. Now, it sounds funny when we think of, we think of ovarian kung fu and we like, oh, okay, they tripping. When you get into those books, it's all about transmutation and transmuting the energy that's within you into being able to utilize it in other forms. But you're utilizing sex and the energy from it to do it. So the ancient ones, they have that. Yes, it's synthesized in every religion. Because if you're dealing with a moon or solar religion, you have some form of sexual act that the gods supposedly did. In Egypt, they say when Osiris got cut into the different pieces or got dismembered by his brother into the many different pieces, Set or Isis went around and gathered all the pieces, but she couldn't find that one choice part, which we call, or should I say they call, a phallus in Greek. And they call it Kemetef in Egypt. They say his phallus got swallowed by a serpent, which really represents sexual sublimation. If you look at some of the Egyptian pictures and statues, they got something called Ithyphallic Set or Ithyphallic Haru, which is Haru or Set holding their phallus in their hand, elongated. Most people look at it as being something perverted. No, it represents the sublimation of the male sexual energy and the controlling it to use it for higher purposes and higher sciences. We're not made to just bust off every time we feel like it. You wasting your life force. by doing it. You wasting your magic by doing it. You wasting your energy by doing it. Why? Because culturally, we were not supposed to use it like that. The creative process, they've made it into something perverted and fun when it's something that was holy. It was holy. And we run around now trying to get it. No, the actual science, you're not supposed to really do it maybe once a month if you're lucky. Try to do that training. Try breaking it down from going from once a week down to once a month to once every few months. Still having the act, but letting your body feed off that. Watch how your mind change. All of that changes just from not ejaculating, but you ejaculate. And when you learn to ejaculate, you'll have the true science of transmutating that same energy that we feel good and then we tired and ready to go to sleep. Nah, it will rejuvenate you and give you energy to go out and do other things. On that, I rest, brother.
Islam.
That was perfect. Thank you.
Right. I have a question to follow up. So it's a transmutation process. So the ancients refer to the cosmological, like you said, each of the gods when they go through a creation, even of a new being, it's a sex act or a new domain or a new plane. It's usually a sex act or something that occurred with transmutation. So they always talked about the philosopher's stone being like the transmutation of base metals into gold. So is that the case? You just transform the sexual energy into like a higher, rare form of energy that your pineal gland can recognize. Also, I have a follow-up question too. In the battle where Yakub fought the angel, he knocked them in the hip. Why did he do that?
All right, so the first question, you're basically dealing with alchemy, how it's talked about in the Bible, and what alchemy really means as far as transmutating. I would say yes, we're going into more in depth
Adept levels.
of what how ways to transmutate or practice, activating the Christ or something like that. Um, your second question was what? Say that again.
In the battle where Jacob or Yakub fights the angel and they're wrestling, he knocks him in the hip. Is that like what does that mean? Is that like a reference to something?
That's the first time I've heard
Because
about that. That
because
particular. Yeah, that's the first time I heard of that one.
okay.
In that context.
Okay, well, I was just trying to see if there was any like cross reference. But
Is there any
okay, thank you.
reference
You
between that
talking?
and the angel fighting, Jacob fighting the angel? Like I know he like went to sleep or something afterwards, or
Because that seemed to
did
be the process.
yeah? What was that? Was that like a comatose where he went into a dream or something, or was that what about that? Do you know anything about that?
Can I get on that, brother?
Yeah, you got it.
When you're getting into talking about that wrestling with God and that aspect of when they're talking about he hollowed his hip, understand if you're coming from a Hindustan or perspective of it as far as breaking it down esoterically, they say that represents your sacral chakra. When you bust off, you go to sleep, right? Most of the time. Anything dealing with the sacral chakra represents a loss of energy, a loss of life force. So when he wrestled with God, he lost part of his life force. Now, most of that wrestling with God is not to be taken literally. Like they said, there's a sexual synthesis or commonality in majority of the religions. It's a union, it's a joining. Anytime something happens, most of the time, it's some kind of joining. Immaculate conception, joining. All right. God removing the hip with you understand that the hip represents that aspect. Like the Bible got a lot of jewels in it, even when you're talking about the seven churches. The seven churches even really applies to the seven chakras, but you got to get into the etymological meanings of it. Now, when they talking about that sacral or that chakra that deals with that energy that rises up, that's what they're talking about as well when they're mentioning the hollowing out of the hip. It's the changing of the mind state to become something more. After the hollowing out of the hip and the him falling asleep, he became later on Israel. He was reawakened. He was, in a sense, reborn. So now he went from being Jacob or Jacob into being Israel. It happened at a place called Peniel. His hip was hollowed out, representing the sacred chakra or the lower chakra. Because from the lower chakra to hit Peniel, you have to start from the lower. And then it goes up and it comes down. So the hollowing out of the hip is a representation of the aspect of the sacral chakra. So we still talking about sex magic even when dealing with this, because even in our dream states, men, women, whatever, we still have what they want to call wet dreams. That's what we call them now. But those wet dreams are actually transformation, transmutation dreams, or it's a release of excess. If you have excess semen, life fluid, whatever you want to call it, in your body, a man will expel it roughly every 40 days, where a woman's cycle is every 28. Do the science on the 40 and you'll find out what I mean by that. But that's part of a man's cycle. It's also part of a sun's cycle. And our body corresponds with that. Because if we go without any release of it, the body will automatically start to release it after 40 days anyway. It'll just start to dribble out of us, or we'll see it in the morning when we go to bathroom. So whether we get, and brothers who's done time know this, if you wasn't touching yourself all the time, you'll know this. But after 40 days, yeah, our bodies as males correspond with the sun, and it will release that same semen if we don't. And they call it most of the time a wet dream. Or it comes out naturally in the morning when we rise with the sun and expel. Hollowing of the hip deals with the lower chakra and its transformation. Instead of just expelling it or utilizing that energy the wrong way, you hollow it out and let it rise. And in Jacob's case, he went to sleep afterwards because he had to go through the transformation. From that point forward, he was on the move. His name changed and he became who he needed to become. So, hollowing out a hip, dealing with the root chakra. Check on it.
Sacral
chakra. It deals with the sacral chakra. Look into it. I give it on that. I digress.
Islam. And to add on to, since we're talking about Jacob, which is really Yaqub, and changing to Israel, I want to reiterate with this book where they're saying his name essentially means circuit of the moon, right? And it also is dealing with the place of Ra's creation, as far as his name is being symbolic. We know Yaqub is dealing with the genetic experimentation, right? So this intuitively popped out to me when I first read this. I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Yaqub, you're doing scientific mutation experiments to create the Albion. And then in this book from Ivan Van Sertima, he's talking about the mirror. His name just means the place of Ra's creation. So I'm thinking about, oh, Yaqub, the place where he was creating people, creating mankind. That's a connection I made with that. But as you were talking, I just wanted to go back to that as you was bringing up that. Anybody else got any thoughts, statements about things that were talked about thus far?
Does that make you superhuman when it rises up to your pineal gland and you could control it? Are you superhuman at that point?
You're absolutely like
you're superhuman anyway.
But like where you can affect matter.
Well, no, you
like with your thoughts.
You coming from the Dragon Ball Z perspective, right? You talking about like Super Saiyan?
I mean, like X-Men.
No hair. He coming from my perspective.
Well,
So look at
because
it like
I
you got
think you
gold.
can
yeah,
manifest. I think
You
you
got
can
gold hair
manifest
now.
more when you
You
get
probably
that
got to
elevation
sit in the
to your
woods for like 40
pituitary to the
days, right?
crown. From the chakra to the root, you know what I'm saying? From the root to the chakra, all the way through to the pineal. I believe you do get that enlightenment where you can manifest with your thoughts to manifest things into reality. I believe you can do that before that, but maybe it might be more easier because your vibration is now resonating at a higher frequency that it probably should be able to do that.
Yeah.
or
I
yeah,
say,
if you use your speech, it should be able to happen, right? Like when you speak.
Your chi, your what?
you said it should happen when you speak. I'll say you can do certain breath exercises to like put you in certain different states of meditation, like guided breath exercises. You know what I mean? If you hold
Mm,
your breath too long, you like get lightheaded. I'm not saying do it to get lightheaded, but it's just the practice of being literally one with self. You know what I mean? So I would say
yeah.
that like I guess superhuman and holding on to your essence. You know what I mean? And using that fluid through like
Well,
breathing.
maybe I used the wrong word. Like maybe I mean like the self has more access to the body. So instead of the self being like it touching the body and it burning up, the self can access the body and command the body with greater strength and greater force than a normal human can because his vibration is too low, too weak, and too brittle.
Well, you got to definitely, number one, if you're looking at doing any kind of magic or magi work or anything on that level, it's all about frequency. It's all about
Yes.
your frequency and wavelength. So, however that works for you, because a lot of people can say a lot of things, but a lot of it depends on diet. Let's just keep it real. If you're eating
Right.
dead things, how can you do anything life? How can you do any life work when you're eating dead things? You're taking
Right.
on their death. So that in retrospect is killing your magic. So
Right.
unless you go back to the whole aspect of one, how we breathe. How we breathe is our spirit. So if how we
Yes.
breathe ain't proper, we ain't doing no magic. If how
No.
we eat ain't proper, and we're not transmuting the food that we're eating, whether you're a frugivore, vegetarian, whatever, if you're not transmuting the food properly with
Mm,
how your body needs it properly, you ain't doing no damn magic.
right.
Got a question.
If you sitting there and you married or you not married, you got a girlfriend and you sitting there and you releasing your energy and your magic into her consistently, and she don't know how to transmute that energy to be able to give it back to you, you ain't doing no magic.
Right. We're
And
assuming
that's
the
just
basics are
real.
handled. The
Yeah,
the
it's
basics are
it's
handled though.
Yeah, it's all
Like
frequency and wavelength and how it applies to your body. If I got a
right.
higher content of melanin that's more
Yes.
than what you have, I may need a
Yes.
different dietary, energetic, meditation, spirit frequency, because it's not
Yes.
all the same.
Right.
Man, know thyself is based in knowing what you need for your body to get you to your godhood, because nobody else can tell you how to get there except you.
Exactly how to do it. Right. Okay. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. And I you. I'm done.
It's live, man. Hey, that's good work. When you said
Oh
a brother, when brother Brian said, "Oh yeah, I'm done," that means you did some good work, man. Because that's an inquisitive brother, man.
yeah.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you was able to feed him too, man. And that's what this what this is about, man. We come together as a people, it's a think tank, and we doing great work. So yeah, I appreciate it. Appreciate all the commentary. This is beautiful. Uh, got something in the chat. Somebody got a question in the chat. Oh yeah, we inspiring the people out here. So I got where we left off with the mysteries of the Silent Brotherhood of the East, and then we're gonna close out. And I'll do a round for one more round for comments after that. All right.
Updates.
And updates too. New developments. So we're dealing with chapter 9, opening address of Yahshua with the 7 sages, 7 days of silence. Ashbena said, Assyria is the land of doubt. The chariot of my people, that in which they mostly ride, is labeled doubt. Once Faith walked in Babylon, and she was bright and fair, but she was clothed in such white robes that men became afraid of her. And every wheel began to turn, and doubt made war on her and drove her from the land. And she came back no more. And formed man worships Allah, the one. In heart, they are not sure that Allah exists. So it's going through the motions, just you doing the prayer, but you down the side, you don't got faith in the situation. Faith worships at the temple of one not seen, but doubt must see her God. The greatest needs of all Assyria is faith, a faith that seasons everything, that is with certainty. And then Apollo said the greatest needs of Greece are true conceptions of Allah, the one. In Greece, it is rudderless, for every thought may be a god, but worship as Allah. Wow, that's interesting. That corresponds to the last book, right? The God, your thoughts as sons of Allah and daughters of Allah. Can't make this up, man. The plane of thought is broad and the full of sharp antagonists. And so the circle of the gods is filled with enmity, with war and base intrigues. Greece needs a mastermind to stand above the gods, to raise the mind of men away from many gods to Allah the one. We know the light is coming over the hills. Allah speed the light. Matheno said, behold, this land of Egypt of the dead. Our temples long have been the tombs of hidden things of time. Our temples, crypts, and caves are dark. In light, there is no secret things. The sun reveals all hidden truth. There are no mysteries in Allah. Behold the rising sun. He beams. His beams are entering every door, yes, every crevice of the mystic crypts of Mizraim. We hail the light. All Egypt craves the light. And Philo said, the needs of Hebrew thought and life is liberty. The Hebrew prophets, seers, and givers of the law were men of power, men of holy thought, and they bequeathed to us a system of love that was ideal, one strong enough to lead our people to the goal of perfectedness. But carnal minds repudiated this law, or disrespected this law, or was against this law of love, and filled the mind with selfishness. And purity in the heart became a myth. The people were enslaved. But when he comes, who is to come? He will proclaim emancipation for the slaves. My people will be free. Oh, so you can set yourself free with love, unity, high vibrational activity. To give, behold, for Allah has made incarnate wisdom, love, and light, which he called Emmanuel. And actually, when you look at Emmanuel in the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary, it's going to say the divine one that has rose to the level of divinity. To him is given the key to open up the dawn. And here as man, he walked with us. And then the council chamber door was open. And the Logos stood among the sages of the world. Again, the sages were in silence for 7 days. So once again, holy books dealing with reiterating morality, instituting principles. We all have the ability to come out of a quote unquote slave mentality. And it's not really about marching and praying, it's about changing our ways, rising, uniting. I was talking about this with 9 a.m. Matter of fact, let me close out. Before I get into that, let me see if anybody got any thoughts, statements, before I close out in prayer. And then I'll start. Okay.
What does the 7 days represent?
7 Elohim?
No, when they talking about it in this verse.
7 days of silence.
7 days of silence. 7 days of meditation.
That 7 days of meditation is something that went on continuously. Because remember,
How many days in creation? 7. So when they're talking about that, depending on the context they're talking in, they're talking about a meditation and all that continuously. It's a change of a mindset. It's a change of a thought process. So a lot of times when they say they meditated for 7 days, it means that their mindset changed, period, for that point in time. So they're saying pretty much it's like saying every day,
Right.
you know, not just 7. Yeah, they're saying every day that mind state changed. They got into that meditative state, which means the mentality of that era changed. And it was all based in love through who they call Emmanuel, which we know is a Greek form or a Greek word that they use to call Jesus.
Right.
So it's that love that stayed in the mind state. It's the love that changed their mentality and put them on that for 7 days. No, that was a change in the mind state indefinitely. Love became that rule until it changed again.
Right. And just to back to the 101s, because Ross Sirius is dropping fire, we got to go to the 101s to elaborate on what the brother talking about. How many days are in a circle? 7 days. How many days are in creation? 7 days. So we're saying 7 days, right? Oh, according to science, how many days are in a year? 7 days. So it's only 7 days, right? So we're not just making stuff up. We're not making stuff up here. This is the ancient perspective. So this is some good stuff. Any thoughts? Any more comment statements before we close out in prayer here?
I got a statement. I just want to state that I learned more about sex education and science here than I ever learned in school. You know, so it's definitely something to listen to every Sunday, man. Beautiful.
Sir. Yeah, I'm glad you got some Jews. All right, 5 on the left, 2 on the right. Allah, the Father of the universe, the Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector, my God, my salvation, by night and by day, through his holy prophet, Noble Jew Ali. Amen. Let me turn this recording off. And we have some new. Hold on 1 second.